Hey y'all, one more again. This is your man Roderick Threets, the Black Patriot. As you know, we're gonna bring you policy. As we always do on this channel, we're gonna break down this particular bill that's in the Senate right now, Senate Bill 1, Strengthening America's Security in the Middle East Act of 2019. All right, we're going to get into the intricacies of this bill and what it entails, and some surprising things that are in this bill that a lot of people don't know about. All right, so before we get completely started, we're going to go ahead and shoot across an ad from an advertiser. All right, welcome back. That ad was from Red Elephant, redelephant.com. If you haven't checked it out yet, go ahead and over there. It's rdelephant.com. Make sure you check those guys out. Great group of guys over there that's running it. And like I said, just check it out. Get some good insight on a lot of issues. A lot of good fellow conservatives over there. So I'm over there. So just go ahead and check it out. See if you like it. There is a nominal fee of I think it's $4.99, and just know part of your fee goes towards the Wounded Warrior Project. It helps veterans and also helps homeless veterans. So definitely make sure you stop by and check that out. And if you like it, go ahead and sign up. All right. So without further ado, let's get into this Senate Bill, Senate Bill 1. The Strengthening America's Security in the Middle East Act of 2019. All right. This bill was introduced by Marco Rubio first of this year, right at the start of session, but it was put on hold, obviously, because of the shutdown, right? But this bill, what's interesting about this bill is it has 4 or 5 bills mixed into it, as you can see here, and we'll kind of gloss over those other bills here in a second. But this bill contains the Atlanta Ross Lettinen United States Israel Security Assistance Authorization of 2019, which basically it reauthorized through fiscal year 2028 foreign military financing to Israel, and it guarantees this loan to Israel and authorizes the president to transfer precision-guided munitions to the country. This bill also directs the president to report on steps taken to help Israel secure a strategic trade authorization exemption. The other bill that is in this is the United States-Jordan Defense Cooperation Extension Act, which basically is it's the same thing as the Israeli act above, but we're going to help Jordan basically on an expedited basis. Okay, and the president is obviously required to send cost assessments and benefits to Congress periodically for this. The third bill in this whole big bill is the Caesar Syrian Civilian Protection Act of 2019. This bill targets the central bank of Libya to see if they're a part of a money laundering scheme with either Iran or with Turkey or with Hamas or Hezbollah or any of those organizations. And if they do, then they'll apply the appropriate sanctions upon those countries that do this. And the last one, which is going to be a slight concern, and I'll get into that in a minute, Combating BDS Act of 2019. All right. So those are the bills that are entailed in this particular bill. All right. Now, let's slide over here to the actual bill itself. Where are we at here? There we go. All right, this is and I'll have all this stuff here in the description box here, so you can you can pick it up and take a read to it, what have you. So don't be worried, or you'll be able to see this. All right, now the bill, the Ilana Ross-Lehtinen United States Israeli Security Systems bill that I mentioned in the beginning here, from this here down at the bottom right here. This would give Israel $33 billion over the next 10 years, in additional to another $5.5 billion will be given them, okay, enacted from last year's defense spending bill. Now, reportedly, this is the largest military aid package in U.S. history, right? Now, Rand Paul held this bill up for all good reasons, right? Why do we keep sending money, all this money overseas, right? Because Israel already gets too much money from us anyway. And I think a lot of us can agree with that. Yes, we do need to back Israel, granted, but when is enough enough? Do we keep giving out our coffers? Okay. To Israel or any foreign countries that makes us broke. I mean, I get his point, and I kind of side with Rand Paul on that issue with this, because of that, right? Now, if you remember back in 2016, Obama put out an MOU, and if you don't know what an MOU is, it's a memorandum of understanding. All right. That MOU made $38 billion. Okay, the bottom of the barrel instead of the ceiling. All right, and it's basically cemented into law at this point, right? Now, mind you, a memorandum of understanding is not binding. Okay, but that's what the recommendations Obama had for this bill, which is I think it was quite disgusting, if you ask me. All right. And over here on the bill, you can see the timeline. United States granted Israel major non-NATO ally status with that. So you can read through this history. I'm not going to get into the history portion of this. But this part kind of explains. These first couple pages explains kind of what I just explained here in a nutshell. They just obviously, they write bills and it's like overly extended. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, back to this, to kind of describing this bill and how this is playing out. Okay. This bill also gives Israel additional perks, like calling for our NASA to come work with their space agency. Now, if you don't know the history with the Israel Space Authority and NASA, Israel was accused of getting classified U.S. research when it come to the space program and stuff like that, and it still hasn't been proven yet. And we already know, Israel is not going to admit to it wholeheartedly with that. So we'll slide on. Okay. One of the other components is the Syria Civilian Protection Act of 2019. Okay, there was a 2018 version, but it was only introduced into the House, so it got reintroduced again when this bill was put on the table, right? And that's, as I was saying about the whole bank situation, it imposes sanctions on Syria, okay? And really, in my opinion, this bill, okay, and I think I have that bill here too, I think somewhere. If not, we can find it real quick. I think I have it here. Yeah, there it is. No, that's not the one. I'm sorry, guys. Is it this one? Okay, that's the original bill that passed the House, the Security Assistance Authorization Act. That was the one that came in before. Actually, okay, that bill is not listed. I'm actually looking now. That bill is actually not listed. I don't think. If I can find it, I will let you know here in just a second. Just bear with me, because I couldn't find it before. So, yeah, I did find it. Interesting. All right, I'll slide it over here so you guys can check it. And again, I'm gonna put all this stuff in the box here so you guys can check this out. But this is the Caesar Syrian Act here. It basically declares that the U.S. policy to use all diplomatic and economic means to compel the government of Bashar al-Assad to halt the slaughter of Syrian people. So it's a we're pulling our troops, but guess what we're going to do to you when it's all said and done? If you participate in illicit activities of the sort, then we will continue to sanction you more. Okay, so this bill is a great idea. In my opinion, hopefully it will help deter Syria from continuing with their as people like to say, human rights abuses and stuff like that. So I hope that does come through and helps prevent and save lives over in Syria, which is good. The United States Jordan Defense Cooperation Extension Act is not actually on Congress.gov right now. It probably will be in a couple days, right? But I explained that is in the pretext at the start that it would provide money to Jordan, okay? And the fact that Israel has long used U.S. aid packages to the Middle East governments to enable Israel's regional divide and conquer strategies, which I think is kind of screwed up a little bit, because if Israel's trying to still remain trying to be a sovereign nation, they shouldn't be involved in divide and conquer tactics. Okay, so that's my other beef with what's going on with Israel too right now. And I've been talking about that for the past 15, 20 years. They need to make sure they shore up their own borders before they go jumping into something else. Now, the other bill that you should be concerned about here, okay, is the Combating BDS Act of 2019. Okay, this is the bill that you should really be worried about, because there's some fundamental issues with this. Okay, if you guys don't know what BDS is, okay, BDS is boycott, divestment, sanctions. Okay, and it's a huge global activist group, okay, that's Palestinian led, okay, for quote unquote freedom, justice, and equality, right? And they claim, okay, to uphold simple principles that Palestinians are entitled to the same rights as the rest of humanity. Well, no one at any given time has said anything about BDS being, Palestinians being bad people in general. We just concerned about them, shooting rockets and bombs over the wall in Israel through the fencing in Israel and killing people. And Israel never retaliates. So I don't get how they get off on that and say that stuff. Okay, so here's the actual bill, Senate Bill 170, for this particular action here. I've kind of already explained the preface of this, but really the breakdown of this, okay, which is really scary, okay, is this bill allows state and local governments to prohibit contracting with any entity that participates in BDS, right? Which BDS, they boycott Israel, right, over Israel's violations of human rights and international law, right? Now, there's many people that oppose this bill because it violates freedom of speech, which that's a proven fact. If we are, this kind of goes down the route with the whole migration pact that those member nations signed with the UN, right? as basically mentioning the fact that migration, speaking of migration, will be considered hate speech, right? And this bill is kind of doing the same thing. Okay. I am not down for squelching anyone's speech at all. This bill is fundamentally flawed. Now, I understand, okay, the premise of this, right? And as you see here, the authority of the states, and if you know anything about the McCarran-Ferguson Act, okay, and you can obviously you can find that in Title 15, Section 1011 in the United States Code, but there's a problem with that, because if we're the defenders, okay, of free speech, then why are we trying to squelch people, okay, that don't agree with what we think? Think about that a second, right? Okay. I just want you to think about that, because if we're going to start squelching speech, that falls right into the hands of the right. I mean, I'm not sorry, of the left, right? And how they want to suppress speech, right? What the case that kind of has prefaced this, the McCarran Ferguson Act, was the United States versus Southeastern Underwriters Association, okay? And they basically said that the federal government could regulate insurance companies under the authority of the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, okay? In addition to the federal antitrust laws applied, okay? So it's almost a twofer in this situation, right? And as you can see right here under the authority of states, nothing in this section will be construed or abridge the authority of the state to issue and enforce rules governing the safety, soundness, and solvency of financial institution subject to its jurisdiction or the business of insurance pursuant of the Act of March 1949, which is the McCarran-Ferguson Act. Okay. Now the part let me see if I can read. I have the part. I thought I had the part highlighted for the speech purpose. Okay, here it is right here. I scrolled right by those right there. Now, this part here, as you can see here, this is the part here that should concern you, right? The term boycott, divestment, or sanctions activity targeting Israel means any activity that is intended to penalize, inflict economic harm on, or otherwise limit commercial relations with Israel or persons doing business in Israel or in Israel-controlled territories for purposes of coercing political action or imposing political policies on the government of Israel. Okay. And this basically goes into how and what can happen when, if you've participated in being anti-Israel. And someone brought up an interesting point with me before about how companies are having people sign compacts, okay, to say they won't protest against Israel. And that bill is part of that, right? There's already one kind of passed previously quasi against them, and people had to basically sign away their right of free speech if they wanted to boycott Israel, which is wrong, right? We can't get into this knack of restricting speech that we don't like. That's both on the left and on the right. We can't facilitate this, because this is setting the wrong precedent, right? We're going to restrict freedom and liberty all in the same shot. I mean, we have to get this right. Let them protest Israel. I really don't care if they protest Israel. That just means I could either choose to or not to choose to do business with these people. It's my dollar. They want my dollar. They won't one either participate in something like that or what have you, or they lose patrons. It's my choice to spend my dollars accordingly. But my final thoughts on this bill, everything in it is okay. The spending of the money I don't like. Okay, the spending of the money I don't like when it comes to the Israeli act. I don't agree with that at all. Just because on the basis that is, to me, it's fundamentally flawed. Okay, because we're giving, if we're giving away our extra money, okay, to Israel with a $30 billion floor, ceiling has not even been identified, right? There's other means of supporting Israel than giving away our money when we need it here more than anything. Okay, and that's the God honest truth. My other thought with the Combating BDS Act that we just kind of went over here, you already know my concerns about that. Restricting speech is not good. We shouldn't be going down this road. We shouldn't be touching this, or freedom of expression. We shouldn't be anywhere near this at all, period. We should be running the opposite way. And last but not least, the last bill we have here is the main bill. But with that being said, let me know what you think about this multi-layered bill. All right. Do you think we should continue to support Israel with financial support of this magnitude? Do you think that the BDS, the combat BDS bill should be rewritten, or if not, thrown out of the whole bill altogether? Let me know what you think in the comments below. You can also email me at podcast@theblackpatriot.com if you have any ideas, or you come across some bills you might want me to break down and kind of explain what's going on with it. That's great. But let me know what you think. If you like what you heard, seen, comment, rate, share. All right. And until next time, and in grace and in liberty, pray for America. Pray for our leaders. And pray for your friends. Until next time.